Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where we're very pleased to have on the show the Lieutenant Governor for the State of Louisiana, Jay Dardenne. Jay's going to talk to us about what he's doing as our Lieutenant Governor. He frankly is the salesman for the state, has even traveled to New York to sell the state and to make sure folks know Louisiana is a great place to come visit and tour and move to. He's making sure also that folks know that our seafood is wonderful and it's clean. And finally, he's making sure that BP pays us all the money that they need to make sure that we get back on our feet. So join me on the next Legal Lines with Lieutenant Governor Jay Dardenne. Welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and I'm very pleased to have on the show today Jay Dardenne. Jay.
Locke, good to see you again.
Good to see you again. You are now the Lieutenant Governor of the State of Louisiana, and that's quite a position to hold.
Well, it's a great job. I'm real honored to be in this position, running the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism, so I get to spend every day talking about the great things in Louisiana that people ought to enjoy.
Explain to the folks how it's kind of broken down. The governor has various departments, and then under those departments there are agencies. So explain to them basically how that works.
Well, a number of years ago, the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism was placed under the Lieutenant Governor. So that department operates completely independently of the governor's agencies. For example, the governor is in charge of the Department of Health, Transportation, economic development, various components of state government. He appoints the secretaries. In the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism, the Lieutenant Governor is responsible for that. So I'm responsible for that. In fact, I've decided when I got elected in November, I was not going to fill the highest paid position in the department. I feel like I was elected to do that job. I'm going to save the taxpayers $130,000 that person is being paid, and I'm doing the job. Excellent. I've got some very capable assistants who are helping. Randy Davis is our Undersecretary for Management and Finance. Kathy Berry is our Chief of Staff, and the three of us are kind of coordinating the activities of the various entities under the department. And they include the State Library, the State Museum System, the Office of Tourism, the Office of Cultural Development, which includes the arts, and the Office of State Parks. So it's a broad range of activities that involve Louisiana's cultural, recreational life.
And let's talk about each one of those. Basically, I'm not sure the folks maybe even know about a particular agency and what they do and how they can access the benefits of that.
Well, let me tell you about each one of them. The Office of State Library, we have one state library, one building in Louisiana. It's downtown, right in the shadow of the state capitol. It's not a circulating library in that you can't go in and check out books. State employees can do that, but the general public doesn't go in and check out books.
Can you access information via web?
Absolutely, and that's what the library does. We provide internet access to every public library in Louisiana.
Wow.
And a lot of people will be surprised to hear that less than 50% of the people in Louisiana have internet access at home. That's kind of an alarming number, but they're dependent upon their local public libraries to access information, to download forms and what have you. And the state library is responsible for making certain those public libraries have internet access. So it's a very important function that they perform.
Well, and the bottom line is knowledge is power.
That's right. And there's also a tutorial service that's offered through the state library and through the internet at every public library, so that kids who are looking for help for the LEAP exam, for example, can talk to a teacher online as they prepare for those studies. So that's an important thing that we do. We have the state museum system. Now, we have two museum systems in Louisiana.
Right,
I used to operate the Secretary of State Museum System, and we created the Heroes and Heritage Trail when I was there to kind of link those 17 museums. But what's called the State Museum System is under the Lieutenant Governor's office. It includes the Cabildo and the Presbytere, the U.S. Mint in New Orleans, and the Capitol Park Museum, which is downtown right next to the state capitol, as well as a number of other facilities.
Jay, why do we have two sets of museums?
It goes back to a political answer many, many years ago when there was a split between the old state capitol primarily in New Orleans, and there was a desire to move the old state capitol under the office of the Secretary of State, and so that split occurred. There's always been some discussion about whether we ought to have two systems, and frankly, they're working well with these two systems right now. We've determined there would not be a huge monetary savings if there was some kind of a consolidation.
So there's a coordination and communication between the Lieutenant Governor and the Secretary of State?
There is now, because we certainly have been there before, and we have a close working relationship, and we're going to continue that. But the state museum system also includes a number of historic sites, places that are not necessarily museums per se, but that are important sites in Louisiana
like
history.
Archaeological sites?
Well,
or what?
I'm going to come to archaeological sites.
Okay.
They're not under the state museum system,
Okay.
but for example, the E.D. White House in Thibodaux, where the only Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court from Louisiana
I can't even say I knew that.
Yeah, and his home is a beautiful home right outside of Thibodaux. It's a historic site. Rosedown Plantation is a historic site that's operated under our auspices. So historic sites and museums are part of that. The state park system. We have more than 20 state parks in Louisiana that are very reasonably priced and accessible, and really great treasures for the people of Louisiana who own those parks.
In fact, I have an RV, and we load up the 4 kids occasionally. Of course, there was a lot more when they were young, and head out to the state parks and the lakes and all the amenities they have.
They're all over Louisiana, and very interesting. One of those sites I want to mention just briefly, Poverty Point in the northeastern part of the state, right out in Epes, Louisiana, outside of Delhi, Louisiana, in the very northeast corner. It is being considered to be a World Heritage Site, one of 21 sites that would be selected because archaeologically it existed before there were Aztecs and before there were Mayans.
Really?
There were Native Americans in this state that had a very sophisticated society, and there's a historic site there, there's a state park there, there's the #1 rated golf course in Louisiana, the Black Bear Golf Course, all part of that little small rural community.
Very interesting. I'm not sure anybody knew about that on this side anyway.
Well, I talk about it
here
a lot in South Louisiana because we don't appreciate a lot of the treasures we have in North Louisiana. It's part of my effort to try and link North and South Louisiana more so that all people in the state appreciate the fact that we can do a lot more as one state if we think of ourselves that way.
Well, and we'll talk about it later, but literally millions and millions of dollars are spent in tourism.
Absolutely.
What other agencies do you have under you?
Well, the Office of Cultural Development, which is responsible for the arts in Louisiana, the visual arts, the graphic arts, the performing arts. Depending on funding that's available, and that funding is greatly threatened in the current budget situation, we make grants available to every parish of the state, what's called the Decentralized Arts Program, that allows local municipalities to make decisions on where to invest some dollars in artistic efforts that enhance the quality of life in those communities.
So the state gives money to local folks who then decide what artists or group of artists they're going to pay to generate some type of art.
That's right. And what kind of artistic efforts benefit the communities? There are an awful lot of festivals, there are an awful lot of programs that are arts related.
So it's not limited to artwork. I'm thinking of making a painting or something.
That's right. A lot of it is, but it's also the ballet, the symphony, the music groups that may perform in local communities. There's a very formal process, grant process, and a group of peer judges who decide where these grants are going to be allocated. So it's not just done on a political basis, it's done based on merit, and it's also done on a local level so people can make decisions as to what's best for their communities.
Excellent. Any other agencies?
Well, the big one, the last one is the Office of Tourism. And that's the office that's responsible for promoting Louisiana and making certain we get the message out to people all across the country about great things that take place in Louisiana.
And in fact, I know that you have recently gone to New York to basically pump up the state, so to speak.
That's right.
Tell us about it.
Well, we're doing a lot to get the message out about Louisiana. Our new brand for Louisiana. I said when I ran, I wanted Louisiana to have a new identity, a new brand, and we introduced that about 60 days after I took office. And it's Louisiana, the word Louisiana, with the I's in Louisiana as exclamation points. And beneath Louisiana is the phrase, pick your passion, because we're passionate about so many things in our state, our food, our music, our culture, our recreational life, and that's what we want to communicate to people.
Extraordinarily unique state.
It is, and whatever your passion may be, you can indulge it in Louisiana, so we're getting that message out.
All right, we'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines and our Lieutenant Governor Jay Dardenne. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and again, we're very pleased to have on the show today our Lieutenant Governor for the State of Louisiana, Jay Dardenne. Again, Jay, thanks for coming back.
Nice to be with you, Locke.
We were talking about basically you being the ambassador for the state and promoting tourism by folks out of the state into the state and also folks in the state itself. Explain to the folks.
We're going to try and put a new emphasis on our tourism effort to bring people from outside of Louisiana into Louisiana to spend money. Most people don't realize for every dollar we spend on tourism, we're going to generate $17
That's incredible.
for the state of Louisiana.
Rate of return.
A great return on investment, and that's why I've been pretty passionate about trying to tell the legislature, give us the opportunity to spend this money because we're going to make money for you. It's one of the few areas of state government where if you spend $1, you're going to make 17.
I can't tell you, I think about the state as being a business venture, you know, making money for the folks.
Well, it's going to generate revenue that we can use to support education and health care. That's why we feel like it's important to make sure we tell people
almost
about
like a business.
Louisiana. It is a business, and tourism is an industry, and we've tried to treat it as such, and we've tried to rally those who are involved in the tourism industry to deliver this message that we really are an economic engine for Louisiana. 1 out of every 10 people in the state is employed in the tourism industry. When you think about restaurants and hotels and the events that we have in Louisiana, it's a real driver of our economy.
And our population is what, about 4.4, 4.5 million folks, so that's
a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
And we're our budget for the Office of Tourism is entirely driven by a dedicated source of revenue. We get 3/100ths of a penny of sales tax that goes to fund the tourism effort in Louisiana. We don't get any state general fund, so there's no money coming out of the general fund to support tourism. It's all based on this 3/100ths of a penny of tax.
Is there any chance of getting federal grants or anything like that?
No federal grants. It'll go directly to our tourism expenditures, although obviously there are grants available in state government that people use that are related to promoting things that help with our tourism effort, but there's no money directly from the federal government to help us in that effort.
So do you have to, say, coordinate efforts with some other departments or governmental agencies at times?
Well, sure. We're working closely with local governments to promote activities that they have within their own communities. In fact, we've developed some programs where we're sharing advertising opportunities with local convention and visitors bureaus where they can piggyback on the ads that we may be running to promote individual events in their community.
Excellent. Why? So if your funds are generated solely by sales tax, and we know the economy's been in the tank for a couple of years at least, I imagine funds are down.
Oh, we've got a fairly steady budget to promote tourism. Our problem has been, and this is an argument that'll be made during the debate on the legislative budget.
They cranked up today, didn't they?
They've already started, and what's happened is they've started to intrude on this dedicated money for purposes other than what we think it ought to be spent for. We think it's an advertising and marketing fund designed to spend money outside of Louisiana to bring people into Louisiana, and there have been some efforts to intrude on that money and use it for things that we don't believe are the appropriate uses.
What are they suggesting it should be used for?
Well, for example, one of the proposals is to use the dedicated tourism money to fund the arts. And we feel like the arts absolutely need to be funded. They're a driver of our economy as well, but they should be funded as they've been in the past with state general fund dollars, not with our dedicated tourism money. There's also been a trend in the past couple of years to use the dedicated tourism money to pay for the operational expenses of particular events, like the Final Four that's coming to New Orleans next year, the Essence Music Festival. These are great events for tourism in Louisiana, and I support them, and I want to see them enhanced, but I don't think the dedicated money for advertising and marketing ought to be used for those operating expenses. So these are policy decisions that'll be discussed during the course of the legislative debate. But the key fact is we've got a dedicated source of money to promote Louisiana. I want more of it to go to advertise and market our state outside the borders of Louisiana. And we've initiated a pretty aggressive $3.2 million campaign this spring and this summer to try and help Louisiana rebound from the devastating effect of the oil spill last year.
Absolutely.
And so that's an effort to introduce our Pick Your Passion brand and to encourage people this summer to appreciate everything great that Louisiana has to offer.
I've certainly seen all kinds of advertisements for Florida or Alabama or any number of other states. Right. And basically we're going to start competing in that market, so to speak.
That's right. And we've been there in the past. We haven't been there to the degree that I want to see us there over the course of the next several years, and we're going to be a lot more aggressive in our campaign effort. We're going to broaden our footprint a little bit and try and reach some areas other than our traditional drive markets, the Houston and close proximity areas. We'll venture out into Little Rock, for example, in Memphis and Atlanta, as well as some national advertising on some of the cable networks, the Travel Channel, the Food Channel, just as examples where people who watch those shows are prone to want to go to places that they find exciting and interesting and passionate, and that's what Louisiana is.
And so really what we're talking about primarily in that venture is just to spend some advertising dollars and get folks coming here.
That's right.
All right. Let's talk, what kind of budget do you have?
Well, we have about $22 million that is coming from that dedicated source of revenue. That has to pay for the entire operation of our tourism effort in Louisiana. It pays for our retirement effort as well, because we've got a program called the Encore program designed to help drive retirees into Louisiana.
Interesting.
And we don't spend as much on direct advertising and marketing as we need to. I'm going to change that. I'm going to redirect these monies so that we spend more on advertising and marketing, because that's where the rubber hits the road and that's where we think we can get people into the state.
Now, BP, you mentioned it. We had the oil spill. It really hurt our state. Are you able to access any of the funds that they've sent our way to compensate us for the losses?
Yes, we have. And the oil spill had a dramatic effect, as you would imagine,
sure,
on the
nobody
entire...
wanted to eat the seafood. I admit it. I didn't want to eat it immediately
You need to start eating it now, because there was never anything wrong with it, and there certainly is not now, and I'll mention that in a minute. But the entire Gulf Coast, of course, got affected in a negative way, and we're dealing with misperceptions now. It's like after the hurricane, there was a sense that Louisiana was entirely underwater, which was not the case. Right now, perceptions nationally still exist of those oiled pelicans, and the belief that oil is washing on the shore of Louisiana on a daily basis, which of course is not happening. So we've got to correct these misperceptions and convince people that Louisiana seafood is the most tested seafood literally in the history of the world. 300,000 individual pieces of seafood have been tested. Not a single one has been found to be contaminated or adversely affected. So our seafood is abundant, it's delicious, it's fresh, it's plentiful, it's healthy. We want people to enjoy it.
And it provides a ton of jobs for folks here in Louisiana, that industry.
It does, and an industry that was directly negatively impacted by the spill, because commercial fishing obviously fell off. Recreational fishing was devastated. People
you couldn't fish.
Trips.
They limited where you could go.
You couldn't fish. People felt like there was no need to come down here and fish, and I'm working closely with recreational fishermen and marina owners and tour guides along the coast who are trying to build back their business. And so we're helping them try to do that and get recreational fishermen from all over the country, particularly those with a lot of disposable income, to come to Louisiana, to think about coming to Louisiana in the dead of winter, where they're forced to ice fish, where they can come down here and they can saltwater fish, freshwater fish, all in the same day during the winter time.
And Jay, are all the bodies of water now open to fishing? There's
About
no limitations?
99% of fishing waters are now open, and we're very close to having all of them open. But yes, the answer is yes, our bodies of water are open. Fish are plentiful, they're being caught. We've got to deliver that message. Now, BP has provided some funds to help with this advertising effort. Last year, in the wake of the spill, the state got $15 million. The city of New Orleans got $5 million. A coalition of convention and visitors bureaus from the affected areas on the coast got $5 million, and the Office of Tourism got $5 million. All of that money has been spent. It was spent last year, and that was a good thing, because we needed to do it in the wake of the spill. So we've got some money to spend this year that I'll tell you about as well.
Let's talk about that and maybe going after them a little bit more. All right, this is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. Our Lieutenant Governor Jay Dardenne will be right back. Welcome back to Legal Lines. Again, I'm Locke Meredith. I'm very pleased to have on the show our Lieutenant Governor for the State of Louisiana, Jay Dardenne. Jay, we were talking about BP and the spill and how it really devastated our communities and the state at large, that they've given different parts of our agencies and departments and government money. Continue to explain to the folks how that's being used and what we have left to get from it.
Well, this year we've got an additional sum of money. In fact, there was a memorandum of understanding signed literally 3 days before I took office. So I didn't have the opportunity to be in part of the negotiation on this. I would have done things a little bit differently, but we're getting a significant amount of money this year.
And when you say we, you're talking about the entire state?
Well, I'm talking about the state, but I'll tell you who gets it. We've got $18 million that is going to ongoing seafood testing, be handled by the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. The Seafood Marketing and Promotion Board, which is under the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, is getting $30 million. A huge amount of money to promote Louisiana seafood.
It shows you how valuable that industry is.
It is, and they're taking Louisiana chefs all across the country and literally all across the world to serve Louisiana seafood, to market Louisiana seafood.
Excellent.
The tourism efforts of Louisiana are also getting an additional $30 million. Every parish in the state is getting some money, depending upon their location compared to where the spill occurred, their size. Parish of Orleans gets $6 million, more than any other parish. The affected parishes on the coast get $2.1 million. The other coastal parishes get $500,000 each, and every other parish in the state gets a certain amount of money, ranging from as a small amount as about $4,000, as some of the $2,000 in some of the small rural parishes in the north. That is being paid in six $5 million installments over the next 18 months.
Okay.
So from a cash flow standpoint, this is being paid out over a period of time. It's not all coming in one fell swoop. Our office, the Office of Tourism, is getting $5 million to promote our advertising and marketing effort, and an additional $1.5 million to help with events to promote Louisiana. So when you add all that up, it's $30 million. Our office, and I am charged with the responsibility of coordinating this effort with an organized tourism program. So we have required all the parishes to submit to us a plan for how they want to spend the money. We're requiring them to incorporate our Pick Your Passion brand on any print and broadcast ads that they do. We're trying to create a focus. We're giving them a lot of flexibility. I'm not trying to micromanage what those parishes do. I want them to do what they believe will be best in their individual locales, but we want to make sure that we're coordinating these efforts, we're not duplicating our efforts, and that we've got a concentrated message that focuses on our brand, Louisiana Pick Your Passion. Those passions are different in different parts of the state, and we want to afford the flexibility, and we've done that for the various parishes to do so.
Jay, does the state and does your agencies and departments still have the right to go after BP for more money?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And you know this, obviously. This is all in the context of potential litigation.
Sure.
There's lawsuits that have already been filed by individual claimants who've been damaged individually and from a business standpoint. The state of Louisiana has a claim. The various affected parishes have claims. There are going to be penalties imposed on the parties who were responsible for the spill, and Louisiana is negotiating at the federal level through our congressional delegation to try and earmark those penalties to help with coastal.
So it's not penalties the state's imposing, it's federal.
It's federal
penalties.
And there are going to be multiple levels of penalties, but we're trying to get those federal dollars to help with our coastal erosion issues because they're dramatic, as you know, and we've talked about that before. Louisiana's coastline is threatened. It's America's wetland. We all need to be concerned about the plight of the coast, and that's going to be part of the overall litigation as well. But all these payments are made in the context that they know litigation is out there, and there will be offsets, obviously, based upon payments that have been made to the state to help with our efforts. So it's an ongoing
potential source of revenue.
That's right.
But it should be.
It's one-time money, and that's the very important thing for us to remember. Like we were talking about in the debate about the budget, this is one-time money. It's not going to be coming back and coming back.
So we better make it count.
We may need to make it count. We need to make certain it doesn't supplant what we're doing with our ongoing advertising and marketing efforts that need to continue and be increased year to year.
All right, let's talk about the fact that you are the Lieutenant Governor, which means if Governor Jindal becomes incapacitated or is out of the state and some kind of event occurs that requires action, you're the man.
That's right. That's the constitutional mandate of the Office of Lieutenant Governor, to be prepared to step in and serve in the event that circumstances would present themselves for that to happen.
Now, there were, I believe, other constitutionally mandated committee ex officio positions. Explain to the folks what that's about.
Well, they're not constitutional as much as they are statutory. The Lieutenant Governor serves as an ex officio member of every commission that the governor otherwise would serve on. So, for example, I'm on the Bond Commission as a voting member of the Bond Commission, which is a very important and unheralded part of what Louisiana does, and I'm on a number of other boards or commissions as an ex officio member as the Lieutenant Governor.
Now, you took office in November, and here we go again, right?
Yeah, I got to run again this fall. Now, obviously I was elected to serve the remaining 1 year on the term that became vacant when Mitchell Andrew was elected mayor of New Orleans. So I'm serving this 1 year. I've got to run again this fall for the full 4-year term, and I certainly will be a candidate this fall.
And are there term limits for the position, as there are sometimes for the legislature?
They're not, and I don't understand why they're not. Frankly, there was a bill filed last year to impose the term limits on statewide elected officials, and one day I think that'll happen. I think it probably should happen, but it doesn't. There are no term limits right now on the statewide elected officials other than the governor, who can only serve 2 consecutive terms.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah. Tell the folks, you've got some other issues that you're concerned with. You talked about coastal erosion, but also litter.
When I was Secretary of State, I really started an informal campaign to fight litter in Louisiana, and I've continued that now in my role as Lieutenant Governor, where it's even more prominent because litter is such a disincentive to economic development and a disincentive to tourism. We're the sportsman's paradise. We spend a lot of time and energy and money to promote the beauty of our state for folks to come bird watch and hunt and fish and paddle and canoe and hike and enjoy the splendor of Louisiana's varied landscape. And when it's marred by styrofoam and paper and trash, it's not good. So I'm spending a lot of time telling people, pick up after yourself. Encourage your kids to pick up after themselves. Be educated on the negative aspects of litter, and let's make sure our state is clean.
Jay, how do folks learn more about what the Lieutenant Governor's office does?
LouisianaTravel.com is the website to go, where you can find out everything about our tourism efforts, where you can get links to state parks and museums and everything that we do to promote Louisiana. LouisianaTravel.com is the website to go to.
And I presume since the legislature is now in regular session, you're pretty much down at the Capitol fighting for your part of the limited pie.
Well, I will be. You know, it's a session where the budget is predominant, and it's a fiscal-only session, limited number of bills, so there's not an awful lot of legislation that we're tracking as you would normally have in a legislative session. But
so not as many bullets coming at you.
That's right. That's right. We're not firing very many, and we're not stepping aside from as many. But we are following the budget closely, and we'll certainly be involved in the debate on the budget to make certain that we're focused on promoting Louisiana and helping us generate dollars for Louisiana, because every dollar we get, we're going to generate 17 for the state.
Jay, as I understand it, there's $1.6 billion difference between what we got in revenues and what the governor wants to spend. You were a legislator for what, 15 years?
Yes.
You've been in about near every position that you can have. How would you deal with that?
Well, it's tough to do. I chaired the Senate Finance Committee and was vice chair for 4 years and dealt with a lot of tough times economically. We had good times and we had bad times.
So we all got to pull.
We all have to do our part, and we're doing our part and recognize that we have to do so. It's going to be a tough time, but we'll be okay.
Jay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Locke.
Appreciate it. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines, the Lieutenant Governor of the State of Louisiana, Jay Dardenne. Thank you for being with us.